Has the bubble finally burst for Oklahoma State and Missouri? Is Arizona fool's gold? Should they be on fraud watch now? Let's take a look at some of the biggest bubble games of the week and the teams on the biggest rise and the biggest stock down teams. We're going to start off on the bubble with TCU and Oklahoma State, a Big 12 battle of two teams squarely on the bubble, heading in opposite directions right now. Coming into this game, TCU had won their last two, including a huge victory over top 5 team Iowa State, and they were on the outside looking into the tournament, really starting to make a push. Conversely, Oklahoma State, they had lost 2 straight games in a row, but were still looking like a team destined for the first 4 in Dayton. Unfortunately, they were not able to get the job done at home. Overtime seemed like a fitting result for a game like this. Parsafala had 27 points for Oklahoma State, including the game-tying buzzer beater to lead the game to overtime. However, it was not enough to overcome 6 Horned Frogs scoring in double figures and earning TCU a massive quad 1 victory. TCU now finds themselves in a much better position to make the big dance, looking like they're in the last 4 in. Meanwhile, Oklahoma State, your bubble might have just been popped. Sticking on the bubble trend, another huge game in the SEC. We had Texas taking on Missouri. A similar situation with both of these teams featuring in a lot of people's last 4 in most bracket projections. Texas went on the road and earned a huge quad 1 victory over the Missouri Tigers. This was a 2-point game at halftime before the Longhorns were able to overpower Missouri in the second half and ended up winning by 17, thanks largely to Dylan Swain, who had 25 points. Texas now finds themselves closer to the 10 line, a little bit further from that cut line where they were before. And Missouri, you're back to the drawing board. I think your bubble might have popped as well. You're in that first 4 out category. And our final bubble game of the week to really look at, NC State, Miami. What a week Miami had. We're going to talk about them in a second with our first team in the stock up category. But this game, wow, a 7-point lead on your home court with a minute left. Sounds pretty safe, right? Not safe enough for Will Wade and the Wolfpack. NC State fumbled a massive opportunity here thanks to some turnovers, some missed free throws, and just horrendous execution down the stretch. They could not get the job done, and Miami came back to steal that game on the road. Even with this loss, NC State is still comfortably in the field, looking more like an 8 seed right now, as is Miami. And on that note, Miami's going to be our first team that we talk about in our stock up teams of the week. And what a week it was for the Canes. They went from last 4 in on the bubble to now being a lot more comfortable on the field as an 8 seed. They picked up 2 huge quad 1 wins, the NC State game that we just talked about, and maybe even bigger than that, they defended their home turf as North Carolina came to town, and they got a 9-point victory over the Heels, who had a healthy Caleb Wilson at the time. Miami's reminded people, yeah, there's 2 good Miami teams this year. Don't forget about them. Don't just pay attention to Miami of Ohio. Miami, Florida is for real. They are definitely on the stock up after the week they just had. Continuing with another team whose stock is looking up, how about those Wisconsin Badgers? They have pretty much locked up a spot in the tournament right now, and they have some of the most impressive wins in the country. Obviously, they had the biggest win of the season, arguably, going into Ann Arbor and knocking off Michigan earlier in the season, and now, this past week alone, they picked up 2 more top 10 victories over conference foes. They knocked off Michigan State by 20 points on Friday. This was a game in Madison where they were in control the entire time. And earlier in the week, they went on the road to Champaign and knocked off Illinois in overtime. This is an incredible team. They have won some huge games, and they're looking like a force to be reckoned with right now. I certainly wouldn't want to have my team going up against the Badgers. On the flip side of things, let's look at teams whose stock is trending down, and we have to start with Arizona right here. What a week it was for Arizona, how quickly things can turn. They rode super high to a 23-0 start to get the season rolling, and then they just ran into an absolute brick wall now that they're starting to hit the teeth of that Big 12 schedule. They started things off on the road against Kansas at the Phog, one of the toughest, if not the toughest place to play in the country. Even without Darren Peterson for the Jayhawks that game, Kansas does not lose at home, so it's not the end of the world to drop a game like that by only a few points. However, Texas Tech came to Arizona this past Saturday, and with a chance to kind of follow up that victory, right the ship, Arizona did not get the job done. They ended up losing by 4 in overtime. Down the stretch, they were not able to get those big rebounds that they needed, and Texas Tech out-physicaled, out-muscled them to earn the hard-fought victory. And to make matters worse, stud freshman Koa Pete did not play the second half of this game. We're still waiting an update to see what his injury is looking like, but definitely a down week for Arizona. To be honest, they're still looking like they're going to be a 1 seed right now, but it is a much different outlook than it was just a week ago. Our second team with their stock looking down after this past week, we talked about them to start this video off, Oklahoma State. Oh my goodness. You have a huge victory over BYU to get yourself back into tournament conversation. And then what do you do after that? You drop 3 games in a row. First, a 40-point drubbing to Arizona. Not the end of the world. It happens against a team like Arizona. You followed up with a road loss to Arizona State. Not the end of the world, but a huge quad 1 game that they really needed to pick up just to stack quad 1 wins. And then most importantly, the game that we talked about earlier against TCU, a true bubble loser go home game. And they lost. Oklahoma State is not in a good position right now. They're definitely on the wrong side of the bubble. They do have some tough games in the Big 12 where they have a chance to play their way back in, but I think their bubble might be burst right now. You guys let me know in the comments, whose bubble's burst? Is Arizona a fraud?